Right, so this is a bit nerve-wracking for me, to be honest. I don't want you to think that I'm here going to, this is what you do, right? I'm just trying to tell my story to see if it will help you to feel a bit inspired that you can make change happen. But it is not easy. Don't think, oh, I can just go in and do that now. It is a challenge. And I think you have to be ready for the challenge. So if you're up for the challenge, I think a lot of midwives are up for challenges, aren't we? Because it's the way we are. Then you'll be able to do it. So I'll go on to my first slide, which is, do I click anything or is it this green? Right, so this is me. Pensive as usual. My mum always said I was a bit of a thinker, but... So I'm going to talk about leadership, influencing and changing practice. So I think you all need to understand this, right? In this room you are all leaders because what you do affects how other people do their care and how other people speak to each other and how people react. If they see you acting in a bad way or talking unprofessionally in the office or even out of work, they will mimic you. So you need to remember that you are a leader whatever you do. This photograph was taken by my dad because he was an avid photographer and he took about 40 pictures of me like this, trying to get me to smile. I was like, no, didn't want to. I was born with quite a big cyst on my head, can you see it? And basically that led me to go to hospital age, I think I was 18 months, I had to have it removed. And it was horrific for me because I remember it. My parents couldn't stay with me. And I remember them going out of these big, I think it was the Countess of Chester I went to, big doors, leaving me in a big, horrible cot with metal bars. And I remember screaming at the cot and crying for them to come back because I thought I'd been left there forever. So I think we've moved forward, haven't we? That mothers can stay now with the children and fathers can stay with the children, and thank goodness for that. So change does happen. So I thought I'd be a bit controversial at Manchester United. Let's go on to Liverpool Football Club, shall we? Why I think Jurgen Klopp is a leader. And I'd just like to thank, does anybody know Leslie Shukri? Yeah? Was that, I hope you're not a Manchester United fan shouting that. Anyway, basically, Leslie Shukri is a great friend of mine. We don't see each other much, but she used to work where I worked. We connected. And the other day, she put something on about leadership to do with Jurgen Klopp. And it's to do with how he speaks about why leadership matters. So, shall I play it? How do I play that now? How do I play that little... Just click on it with what?
100%. For the boys, with the boys,
I need to get to 306.
I try everything.
If anybody can get to the section of 306, then that's when it starts, the leadership discussion. I don't know where you... Is somebody doing it for me? Oh. Yeah, I think the team are. See, team. How could I not buy that book? Anyway, I'll talk about Jurgen Klopp. Has anybody watched any of his films or seen what he's like when they win a match? Because he goes round and he hugs every single person that walks up to him. He hugs them, every single person. That just reminded me of what it's like being a midwife. You know, if you're feeling a bit emotional on a shift, oxytocin, tattoo. It's not real, don't worry, it'll wash off. But if you're feeling a bit emotional on a shift, it's like you need that hug, don't you? You just need it. It's all right coming in saying, thanks for a great shift, everybody, and then walking out. No, hug everybody because it connects and it gives acknowledgement that you're thankful. It's no good just saying thank you for the shift. You need to be emotional with it, give a bit of love. Right, here we go.
All what we do in life, how I understand, is about relationship. Because otherwise you live in a forest alone, on a mountain alone, and if you only want to be alone and want to be responsible for exactly the things you do and no responsibility for anything else, you have to live alone. Otherwise, always when you enter a room, you have a little bit of responsibility at least for the mood in the room. As a football team, we have to work really close together. Each player knows each name of each person who works at Melbourne. It's not me to create an atmosphere. Each person in a room, each person is responsible for that, and a football team especially. It worked out well. We all win for each other meanwhile. We do it for Carol and Caroline. We do it because we know how important it is to them, and that makes it just more valuable, more worthy. It feels different. If you have a bigger group to do it for, the better it feels for yourself. That's how it is.
That's it, thank you. Thank you, team. Namaste. So, isn't that good? So, when you're thinking about where you are at work, when did you last talk to one of the cleaners and have a conversation with her? When did you last go to somebody in the canteen and say, how's your day going? So just standing in the queue, I'm having a bad day on that unit. When do you last say to somebody who you meet, I'm having a really good day? Or you can see somebody who's lost in the hospital and they don't want to ask. Go up to them and say, are you all right? That's leadership. So my skin-to-skin story is, I feel like I'm going to get in trouble because I was told to try and stay as still as I can, but I can't. My skin-to-skin story is, it's one of challenges really, but positive challenges. And I was listening to, on the way here, Emily Maitlis was on the radio on a one-to-one talking about confidence. And she said something that really struck with me, because I really enjoy Emily Maitlis' interview. I think it's great to have a strong woman leading Newsnight. We need something like that as a majority women group. And she said something like this, she berates herself for a last interview. She always gives herself a hard time. And I think that is a female trait. And we have to stop doing that to ourselves, because what we are doing nowadays, and I am including the male midwives here, because this is about helping women. What we're doing nowadays is amazing for women. And thank God for social media, because if not for social media, well, first of all, I won't be standing here, which you might be glad about, but I think it's a real connector. And when you're feeling a bit low, I'll show you some messages I've had later on from people who've just messaged me and said, oh, Jenny, thanks for that tweet the other day. I know it wasn't meant for me, but when I saw it, it just made me feel like I could carry on a bit more. And I thought, you don't realise, do you, when you say things, that people take it on? So if a tweet can affect somebody like that, how can your words affect somebody? Massively, massively. So my story is that I have actually retired, by the way. Nobody mentioned that, but I retired last year. But I'm still doing things as usual. But my story is that I was trying to get skin-to-skin going at work, and it was proving difficult, but I wasn't working on the area where it was proving difficult, which was theatre, operating theatre. I was working on the birth centre. So I was a birth centre midwife, nipping through the kitchen, going into theatre and writing on the whiteboard, skin-to-skin. Just as a starter, because sometimes on your birth centre, talk about transferring women, I used to always stay with that woman. If I transferred a woman to labour ward, I would go with her, because she was my one-to-one woman and I was her one-to-one midwife. And it's seamless like that. So try and get that in your guidelines, just mentioning that. So I was writing on the whiteboard, and basically I'd go off shift, come back, and it'd been wiped off. So can you imagine that? Every day for weeks and weeks, writing on the whiteboard, skin to skin, wiped off, like it's disregarded. Don't disregard the love a woman has for a baby. We must not disregard that love. And I think we're caught up in the system of, we have to do it this way because this, and it's better this way because it's quicker, and we have to register the birth. I get that a lot. But we have to try and challenge that, because if you don't challenge it, it will never change. It'll just keep going. Register the birth. We need to do the wait first because we have to register the birth. We'll change it. Do something about it. Change it. I actually tweeted the UK registrars to say, how long do you need to register a birth? And when I went back to look who the UK registrars were, they were actually art curators. Oh no, art and museum curators, which was it was hilarious, that tweet, but I did get a message back off them, which was quite lovely. So I carried on doing all this writing on the board and wiped off. So one day one of the porters was going past, and it was Bill. I've known him years. He's gorgeous. Do you know Bill, don't you, Ian? And he said, I said, where are you going with those ladders? He said, oh, I'm just going such a place. I said, I need those ladders because I've been given permission such a Pinocchio. I've been given permission to write something on the wall about skin to skin. And he's like, this, Bill, really? I said, Bill, look at me, how long have you known me? No, I was lying to my friend. And he said, oh, come on then. I said, so you stand with the ladders and I'll write it. So I wrote, I'm talking about that big, I'm not talking about this big, on a theatre wall. A big heart, first of all, because I like hearts. And then, is the baby in skin to skin? That's all. And then another heart, question mark, then another heart. Then I got down. And he was like this, Bill. Oh. I said, Bill, everybody knows it's happening, don't worry. Do you know what? Nobody noticed it for 3 days. How hilarious is that? Nobody noticed it. So I'm loving Ashina on the front smiling at me because she gives me courage. So what happened then was the consultant anaesthetist, who has since changed his tack on skin to skin and now comes to me and says, and gives me a hug and says, skin to skin. And I said, what about skin to skin? So he's now become another champion. He came up to me and he absolutely tore a strip off me on the corridor. He said, do you want me to start writing on the wall, Ted Socks rule okay? So I said, well, do it. I said, if it's helping the women, do it. And he was like, you're just ridiculous. I can't remember the word he used, but he used this word like as a kind of person who's crazy and has got no control. And I said to him anyway, and then I told another line. I said, anyway, my head of midwifery knows all about that. She knows it's on the wall. No, she doesn't. I said, she does. So I legged it then to the computer, emailed Nicola Parry, and I said, Nicola, I've written on the wall in theatre, don't worry. I'll see you today and I'll catch up. And I explained why I'd done it, about the thing, and she sent me an email back. I'm just on annual leave at the moment, and I've just checked my emails, and I said to my husband, no, I'm just checking them. Oh, I'm just checking my emails. She said, and then up pops on you about writing on the wall. She said, I'm at home, nothing I can do, carry on. So she got my email before Richard emailed her. Get in. So when he emailed her, she went, I know all about it. So I was saved. But it went that sign, but they've now got it on the World Health Organisation theatre checklist. We were the first trust in the UK to have it on the WHO theatre checklist. When the boards came, Nick Harper, who's one of the consultants there, came up to me and said, Jenny, there's a present in theatre for you. And I was like, what? Come in theatre. Don't forget I'm on the birth centre, so all this is a bit, you know what I mean? It's weird, isn't it, when you work it out. What was I doing? Interfering as usual. But interfering for the women. I wasn't doing it for myself. And he said, come in, there's a present. I went, what? And it's this big box. And he went, come on. And he tied a ribbon round it. How lovely is that? Because he knew what it meant to me. It meant so much to me that could happen to women. It wasn't about me. What you don't understand is skin to skin is not about me. I'm trying to tell you to go and get it sorted. That's all I'm doing with my messages. So then I started tweeting about it. I started tweeting a little bit, dipping in. My daughter said, don't go start doing midwifery on Twitter. I said, I won't. And then I connected with Sheena. And as soon as Sheena retweeted something, sent me something, I was going, Sheena Byron's retweeting me? And my daughter was like, and then Sheena talked to me about We Midwives. And we just all connected, but it is a great community. Put your hands up if you're not on Twitter. Why? You don't need to tweet. You can just look at hashtags to do with midwifery. You can join, you can be anonymous, you don't need a picture, you can just look at what's going on. Be a dipper-inner, that's what we call those, dipper-inner. You don't need to be active because you have a lot to do. Working clinically full-time, running a shift, being a manager is full on. You know, I've worked out that I've tweeted for 4 full weeks of my life the other day. How bad is that? I'm going to do Sheena's later, work out what she's tweeted. So I started going on about skin to skin, and it's actually cascaded to loads of people, like Birmingham are now doing skin to skin in theatre. I get messages of midwives saying, we can't do it. Got one the other day. Can you help us, Jenny? This is an infant feeding team in an area in the UK. And can you help us, Jenny? We've been told by the paediatric team that we cannot do skin to skin unless the woman's temperature is above 36.5 degrees. So I said, what's your temperature in theatre? So she put, it's about 20. I said, right, well, you can ramp it up because it needs to be 25 degrees. That'll soon make them stop moaning about it because all the surgeons will be going, well, it's too hot in here. But it's not about us, that theatre. It's about the baby and the mother. So 25 degrees centigrade is your temperature, that it should be ambient temperature, and that is in the Attain study. So you need to have a good read of that later. So I've started this hashtag called #birth leadership. Anything to do with birth that you do, that you think, oh, I did that today, and I helped a woman, or I said no to somebody at work who said, we need to do it this way, and I said, no, we're not. You need to just do birth leadership. Just put it on that you've made a change happen, because that is leadership. Women have to be the leaders. The women we are caring for should be handed over the leadership baton, and they should be telling us what to do. We shouldn't be telling women what to do. We've got it all wrong, but changes are coming, isn't it? Changes are coming. So, has anybody heard of Diane Menage? She's a lovely, absolutely, she is compassion epitomised, isn't she, Sheena? She's so lovely. I met Diane because I went to an NHS confederation, some kind of expo, a few years ago, and she came up to me. I didn't even know her. She went, will you help me to be like you on Twitter? And I just said, it's lovely to meet you. I'm Diane. I think I want to study. And she was just in a place where she didn't know where she was. We got to be friends. We made friends. And then she's gone on to do a PhD about compassionate midwifery. So women's lived experiences of compassionate midwifery. So she's now Dr. Diane Menage. And she talks about, she's interviewed women after birth, after any birth, talking about how they felt. And what's come up in this PhD is this, and it's going to make the hairs on your arm tingle. When women have a difficult birth, or they feel stressed about something that's happened to them, if they have a midwife that is compassionate with them, whether it's in the labour or afterwards, it negates part of that feeling, right? So if you've got a woman and she's like, you could tell she's in a bit of a state, and you try and be stern with her because you think it might help her, you're making it worse. You've got to put your arm around her and say, what's wrong, give her time. We are all hard pushed. I know it's hard being in the NHS. I know what it's like. I've been there and I totally get it. But the longer you spend with somebody giving a bit of compassion, the less likely they are to suffer later. And so in the end, you are saving the NHS money through compassion. I found something else yesterday as well. My eyes are really bad, but I can just about see it. Somebody called Sheena Howard has written a big article. I don't know if it's a PhD, but it's about love-led leadership. So all you need to do is go on to School for Healthcare Radicals. I'll tell you about that later. And she talks about why we need to be more loving in our leadership. And I think the model we've got for leadership is to do with corporate leadership. Somehow that leadership is spread down onto the NHS, that this is how we do it, because that's how the corporate world do it. We are the NHS. We're not dealing with a product, we're dealing with a person. So we need to change the way that management is in the NHS. And the only way we can do that is through us. Because if we don't say something or speak up, it's not right. If there is something going on that you're worried about at work, do an incident form, because that highlights it to the team that this is happening. And I know they take time, but it's worth it. It's really worth it for the women. So, next slide. So, I've just thought of this the other day. This is my mum. My mum died when I was 18. She was called Dorothy, and she was so kind. I never really heard, the only time she ever shouted at me was when me and my sister hid under the table and she was trying to sleep, because her and my dad got up at 4 because we lived in a newsagents, and she used to have an afternoon nap for about 40 minutes. Me and my sister started giggling one day. We could not stop giggling. And my mum was on the settee and she just went, "Will you stop laughing?" I remember thinking, I'm in trouble for laughing. But she wasn't an angry woman. She was very gentle, very caring, very kind. So you need to choose, this is what I think, you need to choose your embroidery, right? Behaviour is an invisible cloak, right, that you think nobody can see. But each and every word we speak, joke we tell, criticism we share, face we make, pulling faces, is embroidered onto that cloak. So we can't see our own cloak, but others can, including the women that we care for and the colleagues we work with. So I want you to try and embroider your cloak with love, kindness, goodwill, integrity, truth and honour. Professionalism as well. And to thine own self be true. So if you're not true to yourself, if you're going around being loud and shouting, you need to think, am I being kind to myself? Am I being kind to myself? What's my cloak like today? Is it showing a good sign? I keep thinking this is a necklace. Right, so recognition. It's really important that staff are recognised for what they do. It's no good somebody going to somebody and saying, "What do you think about this?" "Well, I'll think about it." And then it's put into a pile and forgotten about forever. And then 2 weeks later you go back and it's like, what happened to that suggestion I made? And then because it's somebody senior, you're frightened of asking, aren't you? This book, has anybody got this book? It's called New Power, and it's about how new power is changing the 21st century and why you need to know it. And it talks about models of leadership that are really important, that help us to, there's like coaching, there's hierarchical, but we need to have team leadership. It's about bringing each other up. So I read some things of Dan Ariely. He's written a brilliant book, which you can't buy everything, but did you know that if you go to your local library and you want a book and they've not got it, you can ask them to order it for a small fee that is cheaper than buying the book, and then it's in the library. So you're changing the world then when you do little things like that, put unusual books in your library. So Dan Ariely, who is a social scientist and a New York Times best-selling author, found that lack of acknowledgement of a job well done, and more importantly, downright dismissing a person's work, that could just be through a look, it doesn't mean a comment, has a crushing effect on workers. When we are acknowledged for our work, we are willing to work harder for less pay, and when we are not acknowledged, we lose much of our motivation. He said it, clap him. So I love this slide. I hope the right ones come up. So this is a photograph from Dan's book, which is called Pay Off. And it's about how you treat the people that you work with if you're a leader. I'm not talking about managers, I'm talking about all of you, you're all leaders. Try and get out of your head that it's the management that are the leaders. You are the leaders because you're making change happen at the front line. So there's an easy way to do it, isn't it? And then there's a meaningful way when you're telling somebody something. You can say it in a nice way. I think that's quite a good slide. So I want to have some answers for this slide. What is the kindest thing a colleague has ever done for you in the work environment? Put your hand up if you want to tell me. That's bad, isn't it? Shall I tell you what the kindest thing somebody ever did for me? It was last year, and I was stretched at work. I was feeling a bit, stressed. And my friend Lisa, who is a midwife at Blackpool, we like curries. And I used to take curry in, not every week, just now and again I'd take curry and some naan bread, and we'd have naan bread in the toaster. How radical is that? And we'd have naan bread, and I'd take some microwave rice, and I'd made the curry and I took it in for her. And I'd done it a couple of times, not ever thinking I'd get anything back. And one day she just came and she went, "You ready for your break?" I said, "Oh, I need to go to the shop and get a sandwich." She went, "Oh, I've got a surprise for you." I went, "What?" She went, Come in, staff room." There was nobody in the staff room. The table was set with a knife and fork, nice glass of water. She went, "Put this thing over her arm." She went, I've made you a meal. I was like, you've what? She went, I've brought you curry in because you're always bringing me curry in. And I thought, oh, sorry, don't shout at me. See that fear then? Whoop, I've made a mistake. So she made me a curry, so I thought that was lovely. Then I want you to turn that around and think, what is the kindest thing you've ever done for a colleague in the work environment? You have done for a colleague. Put your hand up. If you've made somebody a brew at work when they're a bit fed up, put your hand up. There you go. Diane Menage says a cup of tea is compassion. So do we think every day when we go into work, how can I be more kind? Because please try and make that your mantra when you go into work. How can I, even though people are getting on your nerves and driving you mad, just go in and try and think, how can I be more kind? And I'm telling you, it will rub off. It will rub off. So I wrote this about birth leadership. Try and wear a new pair of glasses when you go into work. Sit in a different chair for your lunch, even if it's uncomfortable. Question your own and others' usual behaviour. Not verbally, in your head think why they're doing that, and watch and think, do I do that? How do I behave? Remember why you became a midwife, to give the lead to women. So this is a few of the messages. I don't have the time, am I all right? Oops, right. So these are a few of the messages via social media. I'll start talking quicker now. That I've received about saying thank you, trying to remain a decent, caring midwife and colleague. Your tweets help me to connect, continue to stay true to myself and not get caught up and changed by the system we now sadly work in. What's going on? The system does not define us. We define the system. We are the culture. We can change it. Has anybody heard of Civility Saves Lives? Have a look at Civility Saves Lives. CivilitySavesLives.com. He's just done an infographic that says 80% of recipients, can't read it, lose time worrying about rudeness. 38% reduce the quality of their work, 48% reduce their time at work, 25% take it out on service users. Did you know that? So you need to look at that, because if we're all civil, life would be better. So I think we're in a bit of a juxtaposition, aren't we? Being an advocate, but don't rock the boat. Don't rock the boat. Rock the boat! So has anybody seen Disney's Aladdin? Put your hands up with the kids, anything. So in that Disney's Aladdin, there is a song called Speechless, and it says, in one of the words says, written in stone, every rule, every word, centuries old and unbending. Makes me want to cry saying it. Stay in your place, better be seen, not heard. But now that story is ending. And that reminds me about midwifery, because we've been kept down, haven't we? It's like we've now got a chief midwife. How brilliant is that? Things are getting better for us. So there we go again. I've done another slide. I didn't mean to do two. So have a look at King's Fund. Professor Michael West, he does loads of things about leadership. Very interesting stuff. Learning to be present by listening with fascination. So when somebody's telling you something, don't just, really? Give them something back so that they keep telling you, uplifting them then when you're doing that. It's not going on the next slide. Right, so strong people stand up for themselves, but the strongest people stand up for others. Can you play that little clip of that slide? I made this the other day because somebody was feeling a bit fed up. I made this little video. Is it playing? I'll tell you what it is. It's ELO, Don't Bring Me Down. And it goes, don't bring me down. So I danced to it in my kitchen, showing my feet, and sent it to this midwife. She didn't know, the person who was having a go at her wasn't on Twitter. She was at work, stressed, and I just did it, and I put, don't bring me down. And she went, oh, Jenny, I feel better now I've watched that. It's made me giggle. Don't bring others down. There's plenty of other people doing that. We don't need to bring each other down. We should be lifting each other up. If we lift each other up, we lift women up. Care gets better. Things go good. Is it not going to play my video? It's probably just as well I'm not a good dancer. Look what I've put on, Sheena. She sort of shines. So read this article. If you just Google it, it is open access, you will find it. It's an article about leadership and kindness. So think of a midwife who you'd care for a family member, and then think of a good leader. Can you see the connections between the two? That's a leader, a good midwife. So have a look at that article. I'm just rushing down. The School for Change Agents, this is a graphic by Helen Bevan. So are you on Twitter? New Power, that's this. School for Change Agents, Rebels at Work. These are just some people that I follow. S.A. Missy always makes me laugh. She's a bit radical. And Diane the Midwife. Midwives Galore. A Twitter leader's timeline has more tweets of others than their own. So have a look and see who has got pictures of themselves all down. Because they might think they're a leader, but they're not lifted. We need to lift others up. Get somebody who follows others and lifts them up. Sheena's a lifter. Is that it? That's it.